Hi, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion, Transition to a Career in Data Science. My name is Helena Barmer, and I will be moderating this event today. I am one of the track leads of WWCode Data Science, and I am also founder and leader of People in Data. So I already see that you're saying hi in the chat. Super welcome to all the attendees and super welcome to all the panelists today. So before we start and before I introduce all the panelists, I just want to briefly go through the structure of this event. So you are all muted by default. If you have a question, just ask it in the chat, and Sumana, one of the other track leads of Women Code Data Science, will be there to answer your questions and help you. So thank you, Sumana. And then we also have two other volunteers with us today, Rishika and Sneha. So you can say hi, Rishika and Sneha, from the chat, so everyone would know who you are. They are here to help us. If you have a question for our panelists or that we will soon introduce, just ask this in the Q&A box. So you have the Zoom chat for general questions, the Q&A box for questions for our panelists. We hope that we will get to do some live Q&A questions, but we have already collected questions beforehand and we have a lot of them. So let's see what the timing will be. And now we are actually finally ready to introduce our wonderful three panelists. It's Dr. Jess Stahl, Haley Hamer, and Yashika Sharma. Super welcome. So happy you could join us today. And Haley, would you like to start and just introduce yourself quickly? Hi, Haley.
Hi, I'm here now. My name is Haley Hamer. I am a data analyst from California in the United States. I have always loved math since I was a little girl. I went to college to study mathematics, stumbled upon a programming class by luck, I guess. Absolutely fell in love with it. And right then and there, I ended up changing my major to computer science. I got my bachelor's in computer science, worked as a software developer for a couple years, and after that I switched over to the world of data and am now working as a data analyst who focuses on consumer finance.
Thank you so much. Finally, in the beautiful world of data. Hey, Haley, that's really awesome. Thank you so much. We will hear more from you soon. And Jess, are you ready to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. So I'm Dr. Jess Stahl, and I am the Vice President for Data Science and Analytics for the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities. And that commission accredits higher education institutes, in fact, all of the colleges and universities in 7 states and part of British Columbia, Canada. My background academically is in health sciences, so that's medicine, nursing, pharmacy, and public health, and then sometimes behavioral health as well. I'm really excited to answer questions today.
Really excited to hear from you as well, Dr. Jastal. It's going to be so awesome. Thank you. And thank you for joining in today, and to you as well, Haley. And now we have Jashika Sharma. Are you here? Are you ready to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure.
Hi.
So hi everyone, I'm Yashika. I'm from New Delhi, India, and I'm currently an undergraduate, but I've worked a lot on data science projects and machine learning projects. So I started my journey as a machine learning engineer at Omdena, and after that I joined Milo as a data scientist, and recently I've been accepted as a MLH fellow. So I'm spending my summer contributing to open source and working with organizations like Scikit-learn and Keras. So excited to be here.
Excited to have you here, Yashika. It's going to be so exciting today, and excited to see all of you participants joining in as well. So are we ready for the first question? So Haley, this one, maybe you can start off. This question is from Rasha from Turkey. What do I need to focus on to get a job as a data scientist? I get so confused between data science and AI. They seem really close, especially that I have just started this journey a few months and I go with machine learning and deep learning courses.
Yeah, that is a great question. So, a good way to start it off, absolutely. I know that a lot of these terms can sometimes get confusing, even for me sometimes, between data analysis, data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning. I know it can all get very confusing just because they all kind of go hand in hand with each other. I don't think it's necessarily one belongs in one category and one belongs in another category, but I definitely think there are some usual assumptions that we can make about if something's analysis, data science, etc. So I would say that data science is a very broad area and field that you can focus on. Some parts of data science do include machine learning and artificial intelligence, building models to help predict the future, right, and make more informed decisions. But there are also other forms of data science that don't involve machine learning, such as just basic data exploration, data cleaning, data engineering can even sometimes fall into the world of data science. So don't get too stressed out about if you're studying this or that. I'd say if you're really interested in machine learning, maybe focus your studies on that. But if you're already getting well versed in those two fields, I think you're doing a great job so far. So don't stress yourself out too much. It sounds like you're doing great.
That's a great advice and answer. And yeah, thank you so much, Haley. So next question is from Candace from Brooklyn, New York. And Jess, I'm thinking you can start to answer this. If you're interested in data science, but you do not have a background as technical, what can you do? If you just learn these skills, for example, if I'm taking courses on the Coursera website as a part of a data science certificate, what will my options be?
Yeah, so this is a really good question that a lot of people have. So if you're coming from a non-technical background, then I think one of the best things that you can probably do is just start out learning as much as you can about things that are going to be titled data analytics. So learning how to use maybe data visualization tools, and that could be something that you're learning through the programming language R, right? So you could start there. Or you could start with something like Tableau, and you could even, if you're having trouble accessing those or good courses related to those, you could even just start in Excel. So just getting kind of the basics of how you can start looking at some data, doing some manipulation on that data, like changing the fields, how they're formatted, if they're capitals, making them lowercase, moving columns around, doing all those basics and making some kind of charts. And then I would say learning the basics of statistical analysis. And again, not advanced, just enough to see what you're looking at, right? So when you get some data, how is it distributed? Are there some patterns? What was the highest, the lowest? Get a sense of the range, all those kinds of things. So I think if you start there and just think to yourself, I want to learn about working with data, and I want to learn about how to visualize that data somehow, then that's going to give you a really good foundation. At some point, then you need to start bringing in basic programming skill. And so that I would strongly recommend should be Python. And if it won't be Python, it's R. And it probably shouldn't be something else besides those two things. And so I would start with that. And I think that that will start showing you what you're interested in, what kind of data. You'll meet some people as you go through those courses or do things online, and you'll start to see what direction you want to move in. And so I would start there, and then I would just kind of follow your interests and follow the network that you start to build that way.
Thank you so much, Jess. And I agree, you will start to get to know people. And I mean, just by joining this community, WWCode Data Science, you can actually get to know people and ask for help. So we have a Slack, and one of our volunteers, Asumana, can share that, how you can join our community. And we have a help me channel. If you're starting out, if you have a question, just reach out and someone will be happy to answer it for you for sure. Thank you so much, Jess. So the next question, Jashika, I think you can start up answering this. This is from Shital in Hyderabad. I'm trying to get back to work after a long career break of 10 plus years and to the field of machine learning, as it is one of my favorite subjects. It was one of my favorite subjects during college. I'm upskilling now, but not sure how it would work as there are not many options in Hyderabad for bringing back women to work. Do you have any advice?
Sure. So talking about the options for bringing women to work, I think that totally depends on how you approach on finding a job or internship or anything. So it took me a lot of time to actually find my first internship. Any job in a new field is hard to get if it's your first time. So that is easier if you work on the side projects and focus on building your portfolio. So I would suggest that you continue your learning and you join communities like Women Who Code, and there are some communities like which are only women oriented, and those are the places where people post jobs only for women very frequently. One of the options for you can be remote working. So there are a lot of remote jobs that you can pick up, and if you cannot get job straight away, there's always a chance to do freelancing. So there is a site called Upwork where you can create a profile and start sending proposals to the people, and then you can pick up some projects and practice there and start building your portfolio, which will be very helpful in getting the job. So don't focus on getting your first job, focus on building your portfolio, doing side projects and getting the right skills, and always join communities to get the support. And also you can follow some people on LinkedIn who post regularly on topics related to data science, and I've also seen them posting about jobs which are mostly remote, so that would be really helpful for you.
Thank you, Ashika. And I think also now when so much has been remote, it's going to be more possibilities for this. So really good advice, and to just follow people on LinkedIn or Twitter, maybe even, but LinkedIn is a great place actually to see opportunities for internships or projects or collaboration, and make sure to join communities like ours. Once again, she joined for sure. And Suman has already seen that she's posting the link how to join our chat. So the next question is from someone who is a soft skills trainer, decided to make a career change from Milan in Italy. So Haley, if you want to answer this, I don't have a developer background, but currently I'm studying Python and data science. When I will finish studying, I would like to get a job within this. Can you give me some suggestion on how I could present myself, resume, cover letter, to get a job as an entry level? And thank you so much in advance.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Congratulations on your studies so far, and good luck with your job search. A couple things I think that are key when you're preparing yourself to kind of put yourself out on the market is to really think of yourself as a whole person. What I mean by that is maybe come up with a way that you can share your work with your potential future bosses, future hirers. For example, you could start a tech blog. You could just share your code on GitHub. You could create a Twitter account like Helena suggested. And in my opinion, I think that this is a really unique way to show that you are invested in the community and that you get excited about data science, and that it's maybe not just a 9 to 5, but it's actually something that you love and that you're passionate about and that you've kind of built your identity around. I don't know, I just have always been really passionate about that myself. I think that social media is a really strong tool to build up yourself, and rather than maybe having to worry about bragging about yourself in person or on your cover letter, it's kind of a unique way to say, hey, if you want to learn more about me and my work, you can check this out. So that's kind of like a beat around the bush, unique answer. I don't know, maybe Yashika or Jess will have some more advice on resumes or cover letters specifically, but that's just something that I've always kind of advised people to do.
Yes, Jessica? Yeah, Jessica?
Specifically for resume, when I started creating my first resume, it was 3 pages long. So that was kind of embarrassing because I asked someone to review that, and he was like, "This is 3 pages long. No one's gonna read the resume if it's this long." So the first thing about resume is it should be at most 2 pages long, but the ideal resume is always about one page long. So it's difficult to fit a lot of information and experience on one page, but it has to be that it has to be like that. And the second thing that you can do to showcase your projects and your blogs is to create your digital presence. You can create a digital portfolio with GitHub. You can host your free website, and that is a perfect place to update the things you do, and all those things that cannot be fit on one page can be put on your digital portfolio. So that would be the advice. And for the cover letters, I would say that the cover letters should be designed accordingly to the company you are applying to. So generic cover letters doesn't help so much. So you should prepare cover letters according to the company you are applying to. Specifically add information and the purpose you see when you apply to a particular company, and obviously always include the information about what a particular thing is in a company that you like. So that would help you to stand out, and that would make the reviewer or the recruiter feel that this person has done some research and he knows about the company well, so he might be a good fit. So that would be the advice for cover letters.
Great advice from both you, Haley and Yashika. Jess, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I'd like to add something specifically about the resumes is that, these really kind of the guidelines are going to depend on your local area, right? For example, in some places, there's going to be an automated reader for your resume, and so you need to format it a certain way. And some places there's not. And so one of the things that I would recommend two things. One, when you think you have a pretty good draft, go ahead and have some other people look at it. And when you do that, don't have it be kind of your friend who's also maybe not experienced, but actually somebody that you think would know about this, right? So have them take a look at your resume. And what you can even do on LinkedIn is you can find someone who either works at or could even be a hiring manager at somewhere that is like the place you want to work, but not actually the place you want to work, just in case your resume is not great the first time around, right? So you don't want to send it where you want to work, but you want something that's similar. And so most people won't mind just kind of looking at your resume and just giving you a little bit of feedback on that. And so that's one way you can do it. You can certainly find some resume templates online. I'm not sure if Women Who Code Data Science may have some type of repository for that, but that's also another really good way to get started, is to just find some good examples, draft yours, and then go get some feedback on it.
Thank you so much, Jess. And from all of you, that's great advice and very, very useful for everyone. And I can just see quickly in the chat that people just like, wow, this is so good. So thank you so much. And let's keep on with the next question. And from anonymous person from India. And Haley, if you would like to go ahead. I am a senior analyst with 5+ years of experience in Salesforce domain. Wanted to know if a career transition to data science is worth at this point, considering my years of experience, as I would have to start everything related to data science from scratch, and it would just be from the beginning. So would that be a roadblock in starting out as a data scientist?
First off, I don't think it's ever too late to go after something you're passionate about. So whoever put that question in, I really hope that you don't let that deter you. I'm sure that there's plenty of time left in your beautiful, wonderful life to do what you're excited about. So if you're interested in data science, girl, boy, person, go after it. Okay. Now that I'm on with that part, I kind of have a similar idea of your background, right? You start as an analyst, you're looking to transition. I started as a developer. I transitioned to more of an analyst role. I think the key more than anything is to just show that you're, again, passionate. I think that especially if you have a proven track record in your current field of work, and you are ready to kind of make that jump, and you put in that time after hours to build your portfolio, your virtual portfolio, I think that that really shows that you care about the field and you are excited. And I think that people will see that and will want to invest in you. You know, maybe you don't have the paper experience in data science, but going through the efforts to really network and build that portfolio online in whatever way you prefer is valuable beyond compare. So I think that that's more valuable maybe than paper experiences, showing that you will work hard for your company. Because like Yoshika said, the first job anywhere, any place in a new field will be hard. But once you're in, it's like you now have that paper experience and you're passionate. Oh, you're on your way, girl. You're on your way. So you got this.
Great motivation, and I love that. And it's also like another question, like follow up is it's kind of similar, just how to make a transition smoother. This is from Janina Pinto from Twin Cities. So if you have, this is kind of the same, if you have a completely different background, you've been a receptionist or you're working with an admin or something else, I mean, it's kind of the same. Like, how can you make that transition smoother? And you said, hey, Lily, just work hard and put yourself out there. And I mean, make sure to stay connected with people who can guide you is maybe really good advice as well. Do you have anything else, Jessica, Jess, to add to that?
I would like to add something to it. And I'll use the question about somebody who has, maybe 5 years or so, maybe even more in Salesforce. So one of the things that is going to come up for you, as you start interviewing, is why did you make the transition, right? Because people will be trying to make sense of your pathway and make sense of your resume, and also because sometimes when you're hiring people, you just need something to talk about. You want to connect with them and kind of start building just a little bit of relationship, before you get into something more technical. And so I think that that's something you'll need to be prepared to answer. And so it should be part of your personal journey, right? And so if I think about Salesforce and I think about the customers and the relationship that my company has with the customers. So if you were, for example, to focus yourself in some aspect of data science projects that focus on customer churn or predicting purchases or things that in some way would kind of relate to Salesforce, in the sense that in Salesforce you're working with customer relationships, and then these projects you've done, they're data science, but they also work with customer relationships in some sense, then that makes really good sense. It's easy for people to follow that, and it just seems like, oh, okay, this is the natural progression of this person's career interests and skill set. If, for example, you went a totally different direction and you moved from working with Salesforce into wanting to become a data scientist, and all your projects were around computer vision projects, that really just kind of seems like it doesn't have any relationship. And so then you have a little bit of a harder story to tell. So it's not to say you can't do those projects, because you certainly can, but you should also have some that you could talk about in an interview that are really, kind of logical pathway, easy to follow. And then you can talk about these other kind of things that are very different. You can say, and then when I became interested in data science through these projects, then I really got into computer vision and I really got into this other. And that just makes it a lot easier for people to follow your path. So I think you can do it. I use the example of Salesforce, but you probably could do this with really any field, because machine learning and data science is being applied in every field. So one thing you could do if you just have no ideas is you can just actually go into Google, or actually I recommend DuckDuckGo for privacy of your browsing. But I would go into a search engine and I would just put science or machine learning or AI and then your field, something where you're already working, and see what those applications are, and then use those as inspiration for your projects.
That's
Yep,
a
I
great
totally
advice.
agree with that.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead, Jessica.
and yeah, I totally agree with Hallie and Dr. Jess. When I was interviewing for my data science role at Milo, I was asked that why did I specifically choose data science, and why didn't I go for web development or app development or any other technology or field? So you have to be prepared for that question, because that is highly likely to be asked in any interview. So make sure you are thorough with your purpose and goal, and why do you want to do data science, and why are you transitioning to data science. And if you have a solid reason or passion or goal, you are good to go. So you can definitely make a career and transition to data.
So true, and thank you so much for your replies. That's really awesome. And so, yeah, DuckDuckGo, someone said in the chat. So that's really good. you can use that as well. And I mean, a lot of questions are actually how to transition from something like a completely different background. How can I do this? And one question is from Stephanie. She's asking, she's a sociologist, and she loves statistics, and she wondering if you know someone who's moved from social science fields to a data science career. So does anyone of you, do you know someone, or have you heard anyone do it? No. So I think then the answer, I think Jess, yeah.
Yeah, I have. I'm actually trying to remember the person's name, but it's Robert, and I just can't remember the last name. But and so I can follow up in the Slack. But he started out in social science. He's now an instructor at, I think, Northeastern University. And the way that he works with data science is he focuses on causality. So, you know, if you study any statistics, you hear this thing that just because things are related or correlated doesn't mean that something's causing something. And then usually they leave the conversation there. But then the question is, okay, well, what does cause it, right? Or how can I know what causes it? And so that's a whole field of research. And so there's a lot of data science to be done there. And so I would say he's a very good example of that. I would also say that if you're coming from social science and you love statistics, you really should keep in mind that there's a lot of people will say that data scientists are the new name for a statistician. I mean, that's really where this field started. And if you're in social science, you are going to be strong in statistics, because I just know about that myself. There's so much in those academic programs that is based on statistics. And so I think it's actually, that's probably going to be a pretty easy transition for you. You know, if you gain the right skill set, I think you can have a really good conversation about that, how in social science you were working with statistics, and because of that, then, you know, you kind of went this direction. So I actually think that that's not a difficult one to make the transition to data science. You can also study behavioral design. So there are a lot of user studies. So for example, anything where they're tracking how you type on the keyboard, the rhythm of that, or the mouse movements, which sometimes are actually visualized, right? So there will be a software that will visualize the movement of the mouse. That becomes an image. Now you're doing computer vision with that to do an analysis, but it's all about like why people are doing what they're doing or what they're doing, and that is social science. So it's really easy to explain how you're making that transition.
Thank you, Jess. And we also had a comment in the chat that someone knows a cognitive scientist PhD who became a data scientist, and she's now a lead in her company. So I guess this is a really possible transition. That's great. And then someone, this is like, if you have, this is from Amy in San Francisco. So you have an advanced degree already. If you have a PhD, but in a completely different field, biomedical science, but you're familiar with data quality statistics, but you don't know coding, machine learning, how much of a computer science background, how much of coding would you need? And what would be the best way to proceed with that? So Haley, would you like to start answering this?
Sure. Yeah. I think we've kind of established by now that the field of data science is very broad. So my short answer will be, it depends. My longer answer will be, if you're looking maybe more into data visualization, data exploration, you know, more analytics-based aspects of data science, you can truly get away with little to no code. Even me in my role as a data analyst, I do use a lot of SQL, SQL. A lot of people say it's not even technically a programming language. I don't use any real programming languages very often in my role. So that's one aspect, right? But if you maybe are looking to do more machine learning, you know, artificial intelligence, that does entail some more coding. I will say that I think Jess touched on it earlier. If you can kind of get down the idea of data cleaning, moving columns, changing types, things like that, you will be very far on your way because there are so many amazing packages out there in both Python and R that make hundreds of lines of code into one function call, and it makes it very simple if you maybe don't have a super strong computer science background specifically. So I think maybe you can kind of start to decide where you want to fall on that spectrum of data analysis, less code, machine learning, more code, and that will kind of help you determine how much time you should spend learning programming specifically.
That's great. Jashika, Jess, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, and this is really general advice, and I'm sure it'll come up again. But if you are already pretty strong in data quality and statistics, and where you feel like your less experienced area is in coding, then I would say take the time to focus there, right? Because you do want to get to a basic level of proficiency with that, because in interviews you may be asked about that. And so I wouldn't aim to be a person who knows very little about coding, because I don't think that will work well. At the same time, you don't need to be an advanced software engineer. That you do not need to be. And so that's kind of the challenge in understanding how much coding do you need to know to do this, right? I mean, that's really the question. Because if you just sign up for programming courses, they're often the same courses that are being targeted to people who do want to be software engineers. And so it's going to be too much for you. That's where I think that Women Who Code Data Science is a fantastic resource, because if you start attending some of the webinars and going through different boot camps and things that are offered here, then you'll see kind of what that level of code is. And so as you start learning programming, you'll say, oh, okay, I'm to the point, I think, where I'm understanding most of it that I'm seeing in a lot of the webinars. And then that's sufficient. You probably don't need to go much beyond that unless you just love it and have a passion for that. But if a lot of what you're seeing isn't making sense to you still, then that's telling you need to go, a little further and deeper in your programming skills. So I would definitely use Women Who Code Data Science as a sort of benchmark for that.
Yep, and I totally agree with Hallie and Jess. And you don't need to know the high level coding for just getting started with data science. So there are some advanced stuff like advanced data structures and algorithms that are not immediately needed when you start with data science. To get started with data science, there are very basic things that you need to do in Python or R. So if you are comfortable with basic lists manipulation, matrices manipulation, and if you can do linear algebra with code and some basic stuff is enough to get started with data science. And also it totally depends on what you do. Data science is not specifically confined to doing hard coding. There are a lot of exploration, data cleaning, and all of that stuff that is involved in data science, and that doesn't need very high level coding. But if you're aiming for machine learning engineer's role, then you might need to go for some advanced coding. But just to get started, you don't have to bother much about high level coding.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Haley, Yashika, and Jess. And what Jess just mentioned, we have a lot of resources. We actually record our webinars. So we have a link for that with all the recordings. If you join us on Slack, or maybe Sumana can find the link and send it out in the chat. And then you can actually access our past webinars and have a look at what it can look like, and just start training and practice and ask for help in Slack if you don't know an answer, or you don't know how to do something. And the next question is really good, and it's Christy from Ohio. So she is she's just beginning, and she has a summer internship. So congratulations for that, Christy. And she has a great question, and I think all of you can answer this. If you could go back when you first started working with data science, what is something you wish you would have understood sooner, like technology, soft skill, or something else? So if all of you can just briefly say something about that, that would be great. Would you like to start, Haley?
Sure. Absolutely. Um, so I think I've made plenty of mistakes along the way. I could take up the rest of this webinar just to tell you. Just kidding. But probably one thing I did at the very, very, very start of my career that probably like scarred myself for a while was I think I jumped way too fast into trying to learn like the new breaking evolutionary algorithms and packages because I was super excited and thought it was so great. Like, you know, Google released this new image processing algorithm. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I want to go read about it. And I think I kind of scared myself off a little bit because I was still a developer. I was just barely breaking into the world of data and I didn't know how much there was that I didn't know. I just knew I loved statistics and I thought data was so interesting. And it really scared me off. And I don't think I went back and looked into data for another 6 months probably because I was so disturbed. So I think that Jess and Yashika have done a great job of kind of suggesting some ways to ease yourself into the field without maybe starting to feel overwhelmed and getting afraid that maybe you're not prepared because you are. You just have to make sure you progress yourself in a way that's helpful to you and your mind and the way that you're learning. So starting with those basic ideas of importing data, starting with the basic ideas of a z-score, you know, a t-test, things like that, that those ideas kind of, you see them no matter what algorithm or package you're working with. Having that basis will empower you to learn those more complicated concepts. So that was a big no-no I did.
Christy is my teammate, so hi, Christy. So yeah, I also made a lot of mistakes when I was starting. So the first one was I was very afraid to transition to data science because in my college there is no specific courses for machine learning or data sciences. They are mostly focused on software engineering. So I was always told that it's difficult to get into data science and you need a lot of skills to transition into data science. So I was very afraid and I used to ask people that, can I do this? Will I be able to become a successful data scientist? So that was my mistake, that I used to ask a lot of questions that were totally irrelevant, that can I be able to do this or not. I think that if I could go back, I would just start and not think too much if I could do this or not. And also another mistake I made was I ran after a lot of things. So I was at time I was learning statistics, machine learning, data science, all of those stuff at one time. So that was a big mistake. I would suggest that you should focus on a particular thing at a time, and then when you feel you are comfortable in that, then you can move on to another thing. So just running behind a lot of things would not help. And the other mistake I made was I didn't record what I was learning. So it's always helpful to document or record what you are learning so that you can always go back and track your progress. And also there are a lot of things you will come across in future that you have already done previously. So one way to record your progress and track is by writing blogs and by writing posts on Twitter, on LinkedIn. That will help you to track your progress and document the things you are learning. And obviously maintain a GitHub profile. Always keep your GitHub active. Push all the projects you do on the GitHub, no matter if they are small projects or big projects. You should always document that. And I always create a new repository for even storing the links and resources I found useful. So for example, if I'm learning natural language processing, I'll create a new repository and then I'll store all the links and resources I've been visiting to track and to go back in future if I want to revise something. So those were the mistakes I made when I was learning.
That is great. It's always great to learn from others' mistakes as well. I mean, it's just good to hear it and actually to also know that it's okay to make a mistake and you can move past it. It's not only that you have to get stuck there, but we all do it, and especially when we start out. So, Jess, do you have anything you would like to add?
Yeah, so I think, it's already been spoken about a little bit, but when I first started, I I found the really advanced things so interesting, I just kind of jumped right to those. And then realized that was actually quite silly, because then when I would go to do a project, I would think, well, I don't really know how to, move these things around or do or do any of the. I would go to a Kaggle competition and be like, I hope someone else has loaded the data set, because I'm not really sure how to do all that part, but I can build amazing models, right? And it's just, that's silly, because that's not even most of the work of a data scientist. And so I think that going back, I would just really focus on those basics first and realize how important those are, because you can even build a career just with that, like that's already enough to build a career. And so then I would also add to it that it's easy to get in a pattern of you just do all these tutorials and all these courses, and they're very interesting, and one leads to the other. And the next thing you know, you're just like in a world of tutorials and courses for years, right? Like you really can drag out. And you can always kind of wonder, do I know enough now? Because now I just saw these 10 courses that are now coming in my email or Twitter or wherever. So maybe now I need to know those things before I can start applying for some jobs or something, right? So there's also a question like, how can I know when it's enough? When do I know enough to just start doing projects and try to get a job? So I think that's something I wish I'd known going into it, that I don't have to be the perfect knowing every technique before I can put myself out there for data science work, right? That it's enough to have the basics plus a few advanced skills, and then I can actually just start going forward. And the last thing I wish I knew was how really quick everything changes, because if I'd realized that it was just going to be changing all the time with these newest methods or these new benchmarks or techniques, then I would have been a little, I think, more forgiving of myself for not knowing everything, because it doesn't matter anyway, because it's going to change. If you could be the perfect expert today, and then actually next week something comes out that just blows that away, and now it's a new method, or some big company releases a tool nobody knew about because they would just use it internally secret, now it's public, now you have to know that. So I would say if I'd known how fast it was going to move, I would have realized, okay, you'll never be at the end. Is it just something you're always going to be doing? So go ahead, move yourself forward into projects and looking for a data science position.
Great advice, and I think it's more about problem solving than memory. Just what do you call it? Like just memorizing everything. You have to be a good problem solver and adapting into something new constantly. So that's great. And we have the next question now from Sonam in Virginia. So it's about how the best way is to network and reach out to people to get a data science job, because how do you stand out? Because there's so many others who are applying for the same jobs, and how can you actually stand out? How can you network in a good way? Jess, would you like to continue and answer that?
Sure. So they're related, but a little bit kind of different questions, right? So best way to network, I would say, if you're not making really good use of Twitter and Women Who Code network in Slack and in person, then definitely get those going, right? So those are really, really good ways to network. If you have people in your local community that are going to a meetup or something, then that's great, right? And a lot of places will have it, but some places don't have it. So it's okay if your local community doesn't have that, because online is, our field is perfectly fine with you networking online. You can make still really good connections, even locally, but online. And so it's kind of ironic that way, but it does work. So I would do those in terms of the approach to networking. And then how to stand out. Okay, so a couple things will make you stand out. Someone's already mentioned you want to have a GitHub repository, and you want to have your projects in there. So here's what will make you stand out. Your projects are organized, because you could be a genius. You could be the most advanced. Your projects are just amazing. They will astound people when they see them. But if they go to your GitHub and can't navigate through it, and it's just a big mess, they're not going to take the time. I mean, a hiring manager, you're lucky if a hiring manager is going to click the GitHub, let alone try to find something if they can't find it. So you almost want to make the GitHub, when they come to it, sort of like your portfolio website, right? I mean, maybe not keeping it that way, but when you know you're applying, you do want it to look like something that is really quick, easy to navigate to your major projects. And then the other thing that will make you stand out is having a theme. So again, your resume makes sense, your story makes sense. That makes you stand out more than someone who's just going to say, I always loved data, so I became a data scientist. Oh, okay. You know, or I liked math, so I became a data scientist. It's not an interesting story and there's no theme to it and they don't know what to say next, you know, to kind of keep a conversation going. So they might not come away feeling connected to you or remembering you in their mind after they interview some other people. But if you had kind of an interesting story about what you're interested in, your projects were related to it and they were interesting, they can remember that. They can think, oh, that's that person. She had a lot of biology or bioinformatics projects because she started out, you know, with her bioinformatics degree. I remember that one. Then that's going to make you stand out a lot. And then the last thing I would say that's going to make you stand out, especially in data science field, is your communication skills. Because even though we're, you know, when we're learning it, it's kind of like us and our computer by ourselves deciding what to do and then working on it for many hours. In real life, it's a team and you don't actually get to control all the aspects of it. You might not even get to control what you work on or what you're analyzing or any of that. So they need to know that you're flexible, you can work with other people, and that when you presenting what you found, it's just going to be simple and make sense, right? Because for us, we talk to each other in a certain complicated language, but that's not the language that we can talk to the people in the workplace, right? They don't really care about our t-test or p-value or something. They just want to know, yeah, it's statistically valid and we found this, right? So that's a skill. They want that skill. If you have it, you're going to stand out like a lot from the crowd just having that skill.
That's great, Jess. Thank you so much. And moving on, so Yashika, I'm thinking you can answer this. This is also from Sonam in Virginia. So apart from what we already talked about, Python, R, SQL, Tableau, is there anything else, a must-know skill technologies for a data scientist, something else that you need to know or should learn? And we already talked that it changes, but maybe something that's the current best thing to know.
So apart from the languages and frameworks we talked about, you should know about databases and you should know about SQL because even before applying algorithms, exploring data or anything, you need to extract data. And for that, you need to know how to handle databases, how to extract data from the websites, and you also need to deploy your models in a later stage. So apart from the Python and R and all the machine learning algorithms, I think that you should know or you should learn about SQL, some frameworks like Flask so that you can deploy your projects on web. And you should know how to extract the data from the websites, handling the APIs, and working on real-time data. So those are the technical skills, but these skills are always possible to learn while you work. So there is no hard and fast rule to actually know everything before you apply or work on projects. So I've always learned a lot of stuff when I start working on a project. And apart from the technical skills, there are a lot of non-technical skills you have to focus on. So one of the things that Jess mentioned is you have to be a team player. So in a full-time job or when you are working, you need to work with teams. So you should know that how you are presenting yourself in front of your co-workers or your managers, and you should always know that how the effective communication should be. Don't be afraid to ask questions because it's easy to get lost and work on a particular thing that you are not clear about, and maybe your manager has an answer about that and his answer can help you to do that quickly. So you should know how to ask questions, not too afraid about asking, and receiving and giving feedback is also important in a job. So you should be able to receive, you should be able to give proper feedback to the other person. If there's something that you feel that the other person can work on and that would help you and your team to grow more, you should definitely point that out. And you should always be open to receive feedbacks as well. Don't take that as a criticism, take that as a step in your growing journey. So take that feedback, work on that, and definitely reach out to people.
That is such great feedback because that's how we actually learn, and it's not personal. It's just like you said, Yashika, is to make us grow and actually move forward. And feedback is just to help us. It's not something that we have to be sad about. It's like, okay, this is the next step for me to take and move forward in. So that's really good. And Haley, so Sneha from San Diego is asking, all the different roles we talked about, data engineer, data analyst, data scientist, the different ones. So what are the key skills that differentiate these roles, and how could you choose one specialization? We already covered this a little bit, but maybe you just want to briefly go through, like, what did you think maybe when you joined as a data analyst?
Okay, yeah, maybe I'll put a spin on it a tiny bit since, like you said, we kind of did touch on this a little bit. I think I talked about it myself. One thing I will say is the reason that I personally, at this time, have chosen to go more of an analysis route rather than a data science route um, is because I really enjoy the day-to-day interaction with the business aspect of the company that I work in. I mean, maybe I'll speak for myself, but I think that from data scientists I've spoke to, a lot of your time is spent building your models, which is fantastic and very interesting. For me, I like kind of the turn and burn of speaking with a member of the business department. They say, hey, I really need to watch the behavior of this. I need to monitor this KPI. We're deploying this new aspect of our software and we really have a lot relying on it. Can we make sure that it's performing the way that it's supposed to? I really enjoy being involved with the day-to-day business activity because as an analyst, I'm constantly watching, constantly monitoring, maybe not predicting, so to speak, but a lot of what I do is making sure that things are interacting with each other properly. I work at a software company, so making sure that all of our different pieces of our software are working and that our core aspects of our company that we promise to our customers, that we're upholding those promises in the way that we're functioning day to day. And so I really love the ability to be able to kind of be versed and involved in that. I just want to know what's going on all the time. So I think that's one really cool thing about data analytics maybe. And maybe Yashika and Jess can speak against that, but it's just something that maybe I've heard so far and I really love it. So I like being extra plugged in and I feel that that's something that data analytics has to offer.
Jess,
I
would you
can,
like to go ahead?
yeah, so I can share two ways not to decide your specialization. First way, do not decide specialization by which one is harder or easier. If you think I have a better shot at learning this because it's just less to learn or something like that, that's not a good way to do it. They all require a lot to learn, and even if something's hard, you can certainly learn it. So don't do it that way. Also, don't do it by salary. So if you're looking up what's the salary for this and that and the other one, and you're saying, well, maybe I'll go this way. It pays so much more. Again, I'm going to go back to how quickly everything is changing. And so even what these teams look like, these titles, it's all shifting and changing, and there's so much overlap. That's just not a good way to do it because it's not going to be accurate. It's not going to really tell you what you as a person would be earning in any of these roles, and they're all going to pay fine, and if you get very proficient, then they're definitely all going to pay even better as time goes on. So don't do it that way. One of the ways that I suggest doing it is if kind of what sort of field or range of fields you're interested in, like the person who was working in Salesforce now. If they think, yeah, I actually do like, kind of working with customer data and that kind of thing, then you can think to yourself what kind of companies you might be working at, and then you can think about what this work would look like there, right? And you can also think, where do I want to be? I know I want my first entry level job as a fresher, but where do I want to be in 5 years, right? Am I seeing myself like maybe I want to be a manager, or do I just want to keep being a technical person? And that can help you kind of decide that. I think that if you are focusing in a data analyst role, you're going to have more contact with people within the company, such as a product manager, other business leaders and things. So you'll be building those relationships with them very directly. And so if you think that's the kind of thing you'd like to do 5 years from now, maybe get into a leadership role and, you know, maybe be the one who kind of designs analytic teams. Also, you could think to yourself, what do I see for myself in 5 years? Do I enjoy working with people? Or because an analytics team tends to be a bit bigger, right? And a data science team could be really small. And now what some companies are doing is they're taking their few data scientists they have and they're putting them into domain areas. So for example, you might be the only data scientist who's over in manufacturing, or you're the only data scientist over at this, you know, particular location of an office working with people. And so that can be, you know, to some people they love it, and to some other people it feels more isolated, right? So I would look at those kind of things more. So I would say, you know, what do I enjoy doing? Where do I see my career going? And when I think about myself literally in the workplace, I close my eyes, I think about me working somewhere. Do I like to be with people? Do I like to like really think about like kind of how this is going to work for the business? Or do I just really like a technical role? I just want to be kind of coding and putting it out, tell it to somebody, and then just go, you know, take it forward from there. And that's what I want. That's going to be a better way for you to make this decision than trying to predict salaries or relying on different titles that actually may change, or just not believing enough in yourself that you can master something that's difficult, because we all know that you can.
Good advice, and move beyond our imposter syndrome, right? So we can do it, we can totally do it. And that's why we need a community like this to actually support each other and talk about these questions and ask about everything, and to get that encouragement to like, yeah, I can do it, I'm going to move forward. So Jess, this is a question especially for you. What do you think is lacking in data science now that it has to that will have to make more impact in the medical field, and see AI solutions being implemented there?
Yeah, so this is a great question. Of course, I'm excited about the question. So a couple of things. One is always we need more high quality labeled data, because a lot of the applications are going to be natural language processing, or for medical imaging, then you're looking at computer vision method. So there's not really enough high quality labeled data for all the different things that you could be doing with AI in medicine. Another is something called data interoperability, right? So all of the patient data gets entered into medical records or electronic health record systems. And those are by, at least in the US, those are by a couple of big companies. One is Cerner, CERNER, and the other is Epic, EPIC. And so most hospitals and clinics, everybody's using those. Even in academic research, they're using those systems if they're working with patient records. So if you built something, an AI tool, it could be fantastic, but if it couldn't really plug into Epic or Cerner, there's going to be a problem. And guess what? Epic and Cerner, they don't like to have anything plug into them really that's not theirs. So it causes some problems there. So there's the data interoperability piece. There's also regulatory issues with something we have in the US called HIPAA, which is patient privacy. And then also, if you're doing something like clinical trials, then there are a bunch of rules for clinical trials that have to be followed, all the way from how you recruit people in them, to how you manage the data, to how you report results. There's also, let's say that what you want to work with is something AI related with a wearable sensor. Then is it a medical device? Because if it's a medical device, it could be paid for a certain way, so people might be more likely to buy it because they can use certain funds for it. Or no, and again, it's all these regulations. So I think those things make it complicated. But probably at the root of all of it is that I think in the medical professions, they're definitely now hearing about AI. They're hearing, I think, a little bit about data science, but they're definitely hearing about AI. And they're interested in it, but they did not learn it. They did not learn to code. They did not necessarily learn tons of statistics. They learned all the medical sciences. And so it's something that they don't understand. So unless they have somebody to partner with who is a machine learning engineer, or somebody in a university computer science department, then they're limited in what they can do as a physician or as a nurse or as a pharmacist or even at pharmaceutical companies. So what I envision is that there needs to be more training for those that are in the medical professions about data science and AI. And conversely, for those that are studying computer science, machine learning, and data science, they need to start learning more about health and medicine so they can understand what they're building and why it would be important or why a certain thing is not important. So I think at the end of the day, it's all of those things are kind of coming together and making it a little bit difficult to move forward, even though I think everybody's excited about the role of AI in health. I mean, it's an exciting field, but you know, there are these things that we have to overcome for that.
Thank you so much, Jess. This is like an entire webinar in itself, right? It's so much to cover around this question. It was really good and it's really interesting. And thank you so much for that in-depth answer. And I have a question that both Haley and Jessica, you can answer. You can start, Haley. So moving from software development to data analytics or data science, how do you do that? And did you work at the company and did you make a switch? How did you start? You know, something, just how do you do that switch kind of? Can you just start and say some advice, Haley?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal journey, I actually was working as a software developer within my current company. They opened up an analyst role. I actually had been building some minor reports for them anyway, just the way that it had worked. They had initially brought me on as a junior developer and had me do some basic coding tasks. And then they had this huge backlog of reports that they had no one to build because I don't even think we had a single analyst at the time at all. So they had all these reports that people needed. We had no visibility. And I said, well, hey, I took databases in college. I have some familiarity with it. I guess I can do it, you know, being a team player like Yashika talked about. I spent a couple months in my developer role just building reports and loved it so much. And that was what actually pushed me further down the line when that analyst role did come up, for me to apply. So I think me kind of taking on some projects that were maybe outside of my comfort zone at the beginning kind of helped me to build my repertoire with my bosses and my coworkers. And they said, oh, okay, Haley transitioning to an analyst makes sense, like Jess said, because her story kind of shows us along the way that she was interested in data. She took on these reports that maybe she shouldn't have, but there was no one else to do them. And then she ended up going after that role. So I don't know if every company has those opportunities, but if you are in a place where opportunities present themselves for maybe you to get out of your comfort zone and step more towards the place that you're trying to go, always take that step, even if maybe like you say yes and then later that night you go and start studying so that you can be prepared for tomorrow. I totally did that so many times. That's okay, because they're expecting that, especially if you're taking that step and being bold and saying, hey, I'm going to try something new. Your company will likely be willing to grow with you and invest in you to see you succeed. So that was kind of the luck that I had with my current employer, is that they truly believed in my future and were willing to take this time of growth for me to kind of grow into the person that I wanted to be, and they saw me being.
That's really awesome and amazing, Haley. I love that. And Jashika, do you have something you would like to add as well?
So when I was starting, I was not working for any company or I was not interning anywhere. So before starting my data science journey, I had to do a lot of stuff because my college coursework and the courses I was taking at that time was totally different from the data science. So I had to try my hands on app development and web development before that. So when I was developing apps and I was working on the websites, I realized that this is not something I enjoy. So to decide whether you want to go data science journey or not depends on what you enjoy and whether you like the things you are doing or not. So for me, I was not at all interested in the stuff I was doing at that time. So I had to make a switch and I started learning data science. I started with Python and I joined WWCode Python track for that. I learned Python from there with the study groups going on. And then after that, I picked up some courses because there was no coursework or the courses at my college that I was taking. So I relied on online resources, and most of which were free. So I learned a lot of the stuff from YouTube, and I completed some courses from Udemy, and then I applied for a scholarship for the data science for the deep learning nano degree from Udacity, and luckily I got that. So I learned deep learning from there, and after learning all of that stuff, I hopped on to building projects. So initially, it's hard to get a internship right away from completing the coursework. So what I did was I signed up on DevPost. There's a site called DevPost where hackathons are being organized. So I signed up there. I joined the Facebook AI hackathon, and then I formed team and I worked on some projects with them. So that is a project that I'm really proud about, and I have put that in my resume. So not having a prior experience with any internship or job is not a barrier to get a job. You can always get experience while doing side projects, hackathons, or even participating on Kaggle competitions. So that is the easy way to learn and get started in the journey, and that's what I followed and worked on.
That is great. And I actually have a follow-up question for you, Haley. So you have a blog and you're writing and you do a recap for Intro to Machine Learning series. So you can write every Monday. Did you start that while you were a software developer, or did you start it like when you started creating your projects? We just talked about how important it is to document your journey.
Yes, so I actually was very resistant to developing any kind of presence online. I felt kind of nervous and scared and wasn't sure of the reception of it, you know. But once I decided that I wanted to kind of make that career switch from software development to data analysis, I decided to kind of put more effort into my presence online, mostly because I was working in my company. I was the first data analyst they hired in the entire company. So I was kind of all by myself. A lot of my friends are software developers since I went to school for computer science. So I didn't really have anyone to talk to about data analysis or data science. And so it's like, all right, I'm going to hit the web. There's millions of people out there who do what I do. And so that was kind of what pushed me to get on there online, was to kind of meet people, because I really didn't know what I was doing or where I was going. I just knew I was really excited and I wanted to meet people who maybe could help me get there. So it began as me kind of absorbing from other people online because I was so new and I had that imposter syndrome, you know, where I didn't think that I was equipped to share what I was learning or what I knew with others. But as I spent more time networking on Instagram, I realized that so many people were in my position. They were kind of new and excited and they wanted to share what they were learning with other people. And so that kind of was what pushed me to create a blog, because I figured, okay, maybe I'm relatively fresh on the data scene, but I think that I'm learning things that can help other people. Those people can give me feedback on what I write. And it's like this constant network of awesome, brilliant, smart people who can kind of help me, and I can try my best to help them back. You know, so being online, I think I started my Instagram and tech blog in October of last year, and it's been nothing but growth for me. Also personally, because I kind of gained confidence in what I do, because, you know, there are people on there who have become my friends and they tell me, wow, like this article helped me. And I'm like, what? It helped someone else? Like, that's kind of cool. So it empowers you to know that you have knowledge up here in your brain that is valuable. And it's a great feeling for someone maybe who deals with a lot of imposter syndrome like myself.
I totally agree, and it's just a great way, like you said. You never know who needs what you're actually writing about. So it could be you thinking, "Oh, this is so basic, and maybe it's not good enough," and all of that imposter syndrome. But actually, like you said, someone is reaching out. This was exactly what I was looking for, because we all start somewhere, and then we progress, hopefully. So I mean, every step is really important. And I think that's a great thing to just have a blog. Make sure to follow it, and we have it on our Slack if you want to read it. You do a beautiful and wonderful recap every Monday for our Introduction to Machine Learning series as well. So we have some live questions, and one is, if you would like to answer this, Jess, how much statistical knowledge did you come in with versus learning on the job?
Well, so for me, I came in with a lot of statistical knowledge. I actually was a professor, and one of the things I taught was statistics. So, so I came in with just a little bit of knowledge. Uh, so that for me was probably not the most challenging aspect. And I actually had worked in IT for Intel and Hewlett Packard really early in my career. So actually coding was not also the biggest problem for me either. So I had a pretty good kind of basis of statistics and coding. So I feel like I had a really good start with that. And so where I have had to really kind of up my game was understanding some of the maths that are behind the more advanced machine learning concepts, because oddly, as I learned math, the way that we did the symbols and wrote about things was not the way that a mathematician would, or what's being done kind of in the computer science papers that are published. And so it looked really different to me. And so a lot of things I actually thought I don't even know it at all. And then I would decode it and realize, oh, okay, I do know at least parts of this. It just, presented really differently with different symbols. So I came in actually with some pretty strong knowledge in those areas.
What about you, Yashika? How much statistical knowledge did you come in with versus learning on the job?
I always believe in learning on the job, so I learned a lot on the job because during my coursework and all the online courses I took, the primary focus was on linear algebra and matrices and those stuff, and not on the statistical analysis. But I supplemented my knowledge from the courses from the Penn State University, so you can find the courses and the PDFs and the slides online for free from the Penn State University. Those are really good resources. And I actually did a lot of stuff while working. So if you are familiar with some basic tests like Haley mentioned before, you are good to go. And a lot of the things can be learned when you are working. You just need to be a good problem solver, and that's the most important thing that matters in a data science job.
Haley, do you have something to add to that?
I think that they did a great job explaining. I think that Yashika saying that problem solving is probably one of, if not the most important parts of being a data scientist. I think that's absolutely correct. Because I think we touched on it earlier, things are constantly changing. Every 5 seconds there's a new JavaScript framework, right? I know that's more development joke, but people are constantly coming up with new frameworks and libraries that can help us, which is great. So rather than maybe memorizing one, you have this basic logic and this basic ability to know which one would be the best and which one you should learn and when and why. So it really goes down to, rather than, oh, I can implement I don't know, matplotlib, rather than that, it's saying, oh, I had this type of data, the outcome variable is categorical, therefore I'm going to choose this type of visualization. This type of visualization, oh, I know a package for that, I'll use this one, or oh, I'll go Google a package for that. So rather than being so set on frameworks, libraries, flashy languages, having that problem solving mentality and having that fire to go find the answer to the question is so much more valuable than any of those other skills.
That's great. Thank you so much. And next live question that we have is someone who is a recent data science bootcamp graduate from UT Austin, but also have masters in computer engineering. So is the data science industry open to hiring a person coming from a bootcamp versus having a master's in data science? Jess, would you like to answer this?
Yes, I'll say yes. So I think that, here's what it comes down to. So it's not going to require a college degree to be hired in data science. What it will require is it will require the demonstration of the skill set that's needed for that job. And so, where a boot camp can be more difficult than having a degree is if the person who is hiring has a bias towards looking for someone that has a degree, or if they've set up some automated resume reading software to screen for that, right? So I think, if you're to the point that you've got this interview, then it's not going to come into the picture because you've already gotten over the part where I think the degree is going to, make or break, if you move forward. So once you're interviewing, what I would say is that to avoid appearing like a person who knows only a little bit about a lot of things, which is what can happen at a boot camp or if you're self-taught, then what you want to do is, again, like I recommended earlier, following a theme that you have. I have a certain interest in customer data. Then what you want to do is you want to keep building on that, right? So that, for example, if you got in an interview and there was something that you couldn't answer, the person might think to themselves, okay, they've really focused on customer data and this was something totally different. And they might attribute you don't know about it because you're so specialized, rather than they don't know it because they just don't know enough about data science, right? They're too beginner or something. So you really help yourself by kind of sticking with a theme, and you can narrow down even what you need to learn by not trying to learn everything, but really trying to learn, like, so if I'm working with customer data, I know there are use cases that are going to come up over and over, and I can look those up, and I'm sure your boot camp has presented them. And so I would keep doing that. I would keep thinking, okay, here's this analysis that's done with customer data. Here's this other analysis that's done with customer data. I would get really good at those. I would have, like, kind of maybe 3 key analyses that I'm really good at doing. And then I would make sure I really deeply understand those, like what was the statistics used in those, what level of program used in those, and then you can kind of present yourself that way. And I think that can give you a leg up if you're coming from a boot camp, because it gives you a way that you look specialized, even though you came from a boot camp, which is not specialized, as general and it's shorter term than a degree. But I think you can definitely wind up in the same place. And I would say most people definitely do not have a bias against that as long as you can demonstrate that skill set.
Thank you, Jess. And then we have a question from Kimberly for you, Jessica. I wanted to answer this. So she has just graduated with her master's in data science. So is an internship needed before getting a first data scientist job? And what sources do you need to stay up on date on all things data science? Do you have anything like podcasts, online sites, or anything that you can share? Any advice?
Sure. Yeah. So the answer for is an internship needed before getting a data science job is no, because I didn't have any internship experience before getting my first job. So as mentioned earlier, I always try to do side projects and maintain my GitHub profile. So that is the first thing that helps you to stand out. You can take advantage of the customized pin setting on the GitHub. So you can put your best projects on your profile. So whenever anyone clicks on your GitHub profile, they can see the best projects you have done. And if you're not getting an internship or prior experience before applying for a job, the best way to stand out is to complete a project end to end. So from starting to end, that means not picking up the regular or easier data sets like Iris dataset or the Boston housing data sets, because everyone does that. To stand out, you need to go extra and you have to work from the scratch. So a perfect project to stand out would be something in which you have extracted the data and collected the data yourself. So for that, you can use web scraping, use multiple libraries like Beautiful Soup, or there are a lot of frameworks and APIs that you can use. So start by searching and scraping data on your own, and then do some impressive visualization and exploration, because that is most important. Applying algorithms and doing predictions comes a lot after. The first step is to explore the data and show that what are all the insights that you can gather from your data. And after you have gathered the proper sense and the insights from your data, then you can move on to applying different architectures or algorithms. So when you are learning and doing a project, don't settle on a particular algorithm or architecture. Try different things and show that you have a knowledge of multiple things, and you can apply multiple algorithms and find the best one out of that. And then finally, when you are done with your project, you should deploy that, because it's always impressive to see any project that is deployed as a web app or something. So try to deploy your model or your project that you have created, so that end-to-end pipeline would definitely help you to stand out. And always document the project you are putting on GitHub, so anyone can get lost and not know that what were you aiming at when you were starting the project. So documentation really helps, and that definitely shows that that you know about how to convey your results and your findings. So document your project properly. Also, you can create blogs on Medium to share your journey. It doesn't necessarily need to be only one blog. You can put a series of blogs in describing how you started with your journey, how you scraped the data, and then how you explored the data. And in that way you can create 4 to 5 blogs, 4 to 5 articles, and that would help in tracking your progress. And yeah, that is something that can help you if you do not have any internship. And also, you can reach out to people to mentor you, because that's something I have done. Because when I didn't have any internship, I reached out to people asking them to mentor me or suggesting me or give me directions, so that I don't feel lost. It's actually easy to get lost in pool of resources. So it's better to ask someone that what are the skills or what are the right directions, or even ask them, is this the right thing I'm doing? Tell them about your projects, tell them the things you are learning. Maybe they can point to a better place or tell you if you are doing something wrong. So it's always helpful to reach out to people and to stay up to date to the new trends and technologies. I follow researchers on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I read a lot of blogs on Medium. So that's my way to keep up with the new technologies.
Thank you for all those great advices, Yashika. And yeah, so make sure to create a Twitter account or LinkedIn at least, and follow some interesting people. And yeah, read or write your own blog as well. I think that's a great advice, and we got some inspiration from Haley as well now because she's doing it. So next, I have a question for you, Haley. What are the minimum technical skills you think are needed for someone to call themselves data scientist versus data analyst?
Okay, so I would say if you are wanting to call yourself a data analyst, you should have the ability to extract data. I know Yashika used this term earlier. Extracting data is being able to go get data, right? So whether that's data in a database or data from an API, an application programming interface, data from the internet that you're scraping. I think someone else brought that up earlier too. No matter what, you should be able to extract your data and get it. That's step one. Step two would be to be able to clean that data. So bring that data in and make it look pretty. Get rid of all the extra spaces, the ugly characters, the nulls, the missing values, the things like that. Then you've got pretty clean data in your hands. And then step three would be being able to find insights from that data. That obviously that's a very broad idea, so it depends on what domain you're in, but being able to have this pretty piece of data in your hand and provide whatever department or company you're working for with something that maybe they didn't know before, something that can help them drive where they're going or drive the next decision they're making. Being able to take that clean, pretty data and make it mean something is also very important, and something that you need to be a data analyst or a data scientist really is bringing that data in and then using your logic, using your creativity, using your unique perspective as an analyst, but also a domain specialist to be able to find some cool information lying deep in that data. And then maybe Yashika and Jess can give a data scientist rundown.
Jess or Jessica, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I would say that so being a data scientist, you'll sometimes do data analysis, but it's really going to depend where you're working, right? So if you're in a startup environment or a smaller company, those roles might be really wrapped together. I mean, you might be that person doing both of those things. So we should start there. If you're in a larger company, then it's maybe more likely that they have someone that they're going to say this person or this team is data analytics, and then this is data science over here. And so I think in those cases, what the difference between them can often be is that the data scientists are working on questions that are less related to the past and more focused on solving some sort of difficult problem about the future, or um, a decision that needs to be made, right? So whereas for a data analyst, that historical data already exists, and they're showing it in unique ways, and they're finding patterns, and they're finding trends, and they even will do some predictions. I think for the data scientists, what they're looking for is they're looking for, we don't have good data, but we still have to make this decision. We still need to make the decision based on some kind of data informed predictions. And so that's where really your knowledge of statistics is going to come in, of what you do with missing data and how you're going to solve that problem, or maybe there's something technically difficult about it. And so I think, for me, that's kind of the difference in it. And then I think if you're working somewhere where your work is less related to kind of tabular data, but more like, let's say, computer vision kind of things, then I think that's just really obviously why that's different, right? So in data analysis, you're probably not working with that kind of data. You're working with tabular data usually. So anything like computer vision or natural language processing or any of these kind of deep learning techniques, I think those go over into the box of data science. But then you have to be a little careful, because if the company is large enough, that might go over into the box called machine learning engineer. And so then that's a totally different thing. So so there's a lot of blending and overlap, and so it will depend where you are. I think that's how I see the difference.
Thank you so much, Jess. And we have just a few more minutes left. I can't believe it. It's like 90 minutes just flew away. And yeah, just had a really good time. And I've seen that everyone who's joined in had a good time as well. So I'll just say to Suba now quickly, can you share how people can contact Haley, Yashika, and Jess if they want to, and also how to join our community? And I'm going to think that we're going to try to do the questions until the end. So then we just wrap it up really quickly, because you touched it a little bit just now. So someone asked where data scientists can see themselves in the market. And you just said that it could be a smaller company, like a startup, and you do a lot of different things. But someone is asking, like, what are the positions and the different perspective job wise? You already said that, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit. So what could it look like actually working as a data scientist? How can it be different?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'll point out is that, these trends change all the time. Like how you work is actually one of those things that changes. So it used to be, I think, that data science teams were kind of their own unit, and were part, like you could have an analytics team that had mostly analysts and some group of data scientists there, and they're all kind of working together there in that kind of a unit. But now I think there's a trend to pairing domain experts or subject matter experts with a data analyst and data scientist, so that they can work together that way. So then that looks really different, because you're just working over in some completely other unit, and then there are less of you and more of them, so to speak, but you're all together in this group. And so it's sort of like any data analysis or any data science questions related to what this group is doing, there's you right there to work with it. So I think it looks like that, in the larger companies. I think in the startups, it's more sort of you're doing a lot of different things. And so it's a flatter organization usually. So you might be doing things that aren't even actually data science or data analysis. In that kind of environment, you could be doing all kind of different things, right? So I think it's something you should consider, where do you yourself, like when you close your eyes and think about it, what seems the most exciting to you. But I will say a lot of experienced people, I've heard them give the advice that when you're just starting out, try to go to a larger company because then you can have a mentor. So I don't know if I agree, but I'll just say I've heard a lot of really experienced people say that. So there must be something to that.
That is great. And actually, we have like 1 minute. So you just touched it in. If you had one advice for someone is right now wanting to transition into data science or data analytics, what would be like one line or something that you would tell them? Haley, would you like to go first?
Oh man, that's hard. You're putting me on the spot, but I'll try my best. I think one piece of advice I would say is just go interact with data and think about it. Maybe even if you aren't at the point where you can read in data with Python or SQL, like all these fancy things we were talking about, maybe if that all just scares you, go get a piece of data online, rows and columns, right? I think most of us probably know rows and columns, and kind of think about it. Think about, if I look at this data, how could I use it to learn something or do something? And kind of coming up with that initial like excitement and problem solving mentality. And I think if you get excited about stuff, that will push you to want to go learn the codes how to do it. So that will be my little tidbit.
Go data, just go data, just go online, just do it. You can do it. Yashika, do you have something like we have to finish, but just one thing or two things quickly? We can do it.
Yeah. So I would say stay hungry, but stay patient. So imposter syndrome is real and can be a barrier, but don't let that stop you. And you have to be patient. Data science is something that cannot be learned in a couple of months or quickly. So you have to be patient, and learning on the go is always the right way to do it. And just don't think about doing everything at once. Just be patient and keep trying.
So good. And Jess, you already said get a mentor, maybe, or maybe you have something else
Yep.
really quickly you want to add.
I do. I would say show some passion and try to be interesting, right? You could even make the Titanic data set really interesting, right? Give them a story to remember so that you stand out. So keep it interesting. Envision to yourself the most artsy, short attention span person that you know in your life, and ask yourself, if I told them about my project, would they find that interesting? And if so, that's good. You're doing it well. If you think, probably not, I don't think they would listen to me talk about this, then go back and see how you can make it more interesting.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. This is a wrap up. Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Yashika. Thank you, Jess. This has been awesome. Just love this conversation and seen very good feedback about it as well. So I hope to do this sometime again and meet all of you. This was really good. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Sumana, you have already shared how to get in touch with our amazing panelists and how to join our community. Make sure to just join Women Code, Data Science, get in touch, ask questions, stay hungry, go data, write some blogs. Just you can do it and move beyond the imposter syndrome. That's what we actually been discussing. We can all do it. We just need, if we need encouragement, staying in the community, staying in touch is the best way. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely day or evening or morning, wherever you're at. And I hope to see all of you very soon again. So bye, everyone. Thank you so much for today.